Hey, this is Corey Barnes.
And this is Lisa Caperton, and you're listening to Her Turn to Talk.
Good morning.
Good morning, Corey.
Good morning, Lisa.
How are you?
I'm great.
I made cookies with my kids last night. And we decorated, and we did have some colored frostings. And I've forever been scarred now, and anytime I see green icing, I just think of green buttholes.
I know.
That's all I can think about.
I know.
And for those of you who are listening and have no idea what we're talking about, green buttholes, go back and listen to our British Invasion with Claire Tanner episode, and you'll be in the know. All about green buttholes and what to do about them.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. And green poop.
Oh my gosh. On my way over here, I saw a man walking the cutest little dog. It was a teeny tiny puppy, like one of the little toy poodle. And he had a little jacket on it. Oh. And in my head, the poodle talked like Paddington the bear. It was a British poodle.
I like to imagine what animals' voices sound like too.
I know, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I wish sometimes that my dog could talk to me. Except for sometimes I think she might be real bitchy. She gets real bitchy about food. And so I think she'd be real bitchy about food with me.
Maybe.
If she could talk to me.
Bossy. That song comes on. She's so cute.
I've been thinking about all these weird things. I had a thought that I wanted to ask you. This is randomness. But if you know how some people, you hear these stories, I've never actually, it's just like I heard about, whatever. Sure. I don't know if it's actually true, but if you hit your head, and sometimes people like hit their head really hard and then they get a special ability they never had before.
Never heard of that.
You've never heard of that? Or like they talk with an accent or something.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, Travis is shaking his head. He is in the know about that, not me.
And so I was wondering, if you were to hit your head really hard and then you woke up and you could have a special new talent, or you could speak with an accent, what talent would you have, or what accent would you have?
Oh my gosh. I would have a Scottish accent.
Oh yeah, lassie.
I can't do it. I can't. That's the only reason why I'd want it, because that's the only accent I can't do. And
can you do an Irish accent?
No.
Yeah, they're pretty close. I think. Well, I don't know.
No.
People in Scotland and Ireland are like, no, we're not the same. But
and my special ability, gosh, it'd be to fly.
Yeah.
That's not a real special ability though.
Well,
like a common special ability.
Yeah.
Like it would be really great to have one of those crazy memories where you can memorize,
like a photographic memory almost. Yeah. That would be a good one. And I like your choice of accents. I think I'd want one of those too, because I can't do those accents either, and I really like them. When we went to Scotland, my husband is terrible with accents. He can't do them. He can't do them at all. Nothing. And he has a really hard time. Every time we've traveled somewhere, it's happened to us a couple times where we've been somewhere and they've had an accent. It happened in Scotland, and I think it happened in England. And somebody's like talking to us, and Daddy's like, huh? And then they just quit. They just totally ignore him, and then they just start only speaking to me.
Yeah, Travis, he can handle shows with accents and stuff. I cannot. I can't understand what the heck is going on.
Dairy Girls.
It's
very hard to understand what they're saying.
I heard The Office was great.
The British version.
Better even than the American.
Dairy Girls is harder because they are.
I don't know Dairy Girls.
They're Ireland. It's in Ireland, so they have very thick Irish accents. Sometimes I still can't understand them, but it's a hilarious show. It's a really good show. I recommend it. But if I was to hit my head and have a special ability, I would want to be able to play music because I'm so sad that I can't. So anyways, it's randomness. One time I tried to take guitar lessons.
Just one time.
Just one time. Well, I went to a few lessons, but I didn't really do it.
You want to be like a prodigy.
Yeah.
You want to be able to
I just want to sit down at the piano.
Hit your head.
I want to sit down at the piano and all of a sudden become Elton John. Yeah.
Speaking of Beethoven, and this might be a little controversial, but I don't care. My father brought to my attention that Beethoven might be black.
Well, that would be awesome.
Yeah. There's all these things. We'll have to look up some more information about it. But there's in his, his mask in his coffin or something, very, very strong features of African-American descent.
Well, that would be awesome if
I could be
awesome.
completely wrong, but that came from my dad, and he's a valuable source, so I'll have to find out more information.
It's coming straight from
But wouldn't that be
the word of
amazing?
Mr. Barnes.
Wouldn't that be something else? It's very possible.
Well,
There's no
you know
pictures
what?
of him.
He should have his credit in the
there's no-
proper way if that is so.
Yeah.
And
There was
that's
no
awesome.
photography back then. Just random
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
Random shit that you learn.
Well, you know what? That's funny because
Or no, it's more
Yeah.
of this, you hear from someone else. It's one of those things.
he said, she said stuff.
No, about like hitting the head. You just were started off
Yeah.
with like,
yeah.
the person said this. And
Right. Oh,
it's
I
just
know.
one
I had a
those
friend
things.
of a friend of a friend who
Yeah.
did this huh. Well, I've never heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you want to know about my badass woman of the week?
What if I said no?
I know, right?
Of course I do.
You're gonna know anyways. I'm gonna tell you anyways.
Of course I do,
I
and I bet
went- I went a
our
little,
listeners do too.
I went a little rogue because mine's not just a woman; it's a group of women.
Something was rogue last week. What was rogue last week?
I don't know. I like to go rogue.
Let's hear it. Let's hear about her.
I'm a wild card. Anyways, so it's a group of women. Have you ever heard of the Black Mambas?
Yes.
You have? Okay. So do you know that they are a group of women that are part of an anti-poaching unit?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Tell
so
us
they're
more.
Yeah, in South Africa, and they're predominantly a female group. I've found a couple of different articles in New York Times. .com and on Wikipedia and then on their own website, and the numbers kind of vary from each thing you look at, so I'm not quite certain how many there are, but I know at one point when they first started it was like 36 women, and I think they have like 1 or 2 men, so it's very predominantly men. And I think on their website it says right now that they have 22 women working in this anti-poaching unit. But the Black Mambas, they were founded in 2013, so it's still pretty relatively new. And they are on the Balu, I don't think I'm saying that right, BALULE. I did research how to say
Baloo.
that, and I forgot it. It's a nature reserve, and it's just outside of by the Greater Kruger National Park in South Africa.
Kruger?
And, Kruger, like Freddy Krueger, KRUGER National Park. And it says on their website, it says, our teams work to the concept of the broken window philosophy, striving to make our area of influence the most undesirable, most difficult, and least profitable place to poach for any species. With a passion for wildlife and rhino conservation, these women are the voice of the community through their conservation work. So not only do they go around and patrol their areas, but they also go out and speak to the local communities, and they have different programs to where they go to the schools and teach about poaching. And their objective is to, kind of educate the people around them and educate the young people to hopefully stop, potential poachers from happening.
Will you tell our listeners what poaching is?
So poaching is the illegal killing of wildlife, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be endangered wildlife. But in particular here, these women are out there, they're protecting lions, elephants, rhinos, and what is the name of that the pangolin?
A squirrel.
Yeah, it's like
Just kidding.
I don't know if you've ever seen these animals. They're
I don't know what a pangolin is.
they're really cute. They almost look like an armadillo, sorta. Do you know? I don't know.
They
We're gonna
eat the
put
meat?
huh?
Do people eat the meat of it?
I don't know why people.
Do people pay to go over there to poach these animals?
I think a lot of times people there are doing it. It's a pangolin, Pangolin. You would know it if you saw it. It kind of looks like an armadillo, but kind of longer. But people go, they poach. They're doing these for medicinal reasons. They say for some like rhino horns, they're selling them to the black market for medicinal reasons. They're poaching these animals to sell them for meat. Elephants, tusks, trophy animals, all these different things. But these women, they actually don't carry any weapons, and so they go out there and they are on patrol just to be like be in the way and to have a presence known and scare off these poachers. They also, if they see snares, they'll disable the snares so that they're not catching them. The poachers typically, they don't want to come out there. They don't want to start trouble with other people. They just want to quietly go in, sneak,
I'm surprised
get
to
the
hear
animals
that.
and get out.
I
I know.
imagine they would be pretty hostile.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And I mean, I do think, maybe there is a, certain risk to that, but
Are these women from all over the...
These women are predominantly from the area there. And so this gives them, something to do. They actually go and they spend like 21 days there, and then they go back to their families for 10 days. And they live on the premises there and help, and they're getting up and patrolling these areas. And according to the New York Times article, they actually interviewed one of the women who works there, and she's kind of just talking about different things about being there. And she says that for safety, they walk around, they have smartphones and they have apps that they kind of track them. And so people can know where they are and what's going on. And they're able to also take pictures, and they'll send pictures back to the offices to let them also know like where the animals are and things like that. And it says for their training, they had to go and learn how to survive in the bush without bathing for 7 weeks. And it was very hard because they'd have to wake up early in the morning, and they'd have to run or walk along the fences. They had to make houses out of branches, and they were shown how to interact with the big five, which are elephants, lions, leopards, rhinos, and Cape buffalo.
Is this a volunteer thing?
No, I do believe now that these women are getting paid to, like, this is their job to go out here and do this. And then they had a second week of training was for 2 weeks. And so I guess it's a total of 9-week training. And they stay on the reserve now for 21 days. They go home for 10. And it says that people did donate houses for them to live. And they live in like these small little compounds where they share little houses with other women that are there. But
I wonder why it's predominantly women.
I don't know. But
why isn't there more? There's only 22 people.
That's what, according to the website, like I said, there's different, from what I've been reading, different numbers depending on which kind of article you read about. But they have won some different awards for their anti-poaching.
Yeah, it's an honorable job and thing to do.
Yeah. And their environmental education program is called Bush Babies. It's Bush Babies educational program, education program. And so they actually go out to the schools there, and they teach kids in these local villages about poaching and about the environment and how to protect their environment in which that they live in. And so I just think that these women are pretty awesome. And so I just wanted to share, and you can actually go check out their website, blackmambas.org. You can donate to them and help them with their anti-poaching, or you can also donate to help them with their education outreach help that they do.
Are they anonymous, that we don't have anybody's names?
You can go and look at the website.
But they're not like a protected group.
No. You can look. There's beautiful pictures. You see these beautiful women. They're out there in like army fatigues. They have pictures of them with like rhinoceros in the background. Yeah, I mean it's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
so, now that I got that visual, that's pretty.
Yeah. So
badass, as we would say.
I think these women, it's a pretty badass group of women, and in a place where, I think they were told women don't do these kinds of things. Women shouldn't be doing these kinds of things. And, they're out there making a voice. They're making a change for women. They're making a change for their environment, for the animals,
Thank
so
God
many
they're
good
out
things.
there.
Yeah.
I wonder how many animals' lives they've saved.
I don't know
And
exactly
bush
the
babies.
numbers. I know.
Those big old eyes.
So black mambas are a badass women. Group of women of this week.
The Black Mambas.
They're awesome, just like their name
They deserve
after the snake.
They deserve a song, a jingle, or like the Black Mambas.
He says right here on the New York Times, it says, just because you did ask about this, that in addition to the pride of working in a traditionally male environment, being a mamba gives the women the opportunity to show their children, especially their female children, that women can hold meaningful work at home. Their beginning salary is about 3,500 South African Rand, or about $224 a month, with the chance to earn more the higher they go.
$224 a month.
I know we complain a lot about how much we make here sometimes. It's ridiculous. And we're not
That makes
out,
me want to hit my head.
we're not out there, roaming South Africa with lions and
Oh my
Cape
God.
Buffalo. But so, yes, badass women, Black Mambas. Today we're going to talk to another badass woman who we've not met before. I'm super interested to meet her. Her name is Juli, and Juli has done many things in her life. She has worked for InCar for 30 years. She's opened her own publishing company where she helps people with sci-fi writing. She's wrote her own first sci-fi novel or sci-fi piece. Super excited to hear about her. She is a retired software engineer. I mean, she sounds like she's done a lot. She's shown dogs before. I'm super interested. We're dog lovers, so we'll have to talk to her about that. But I'm just interested to get to know her and for our listeners to get to know her. Julianna, it looks like you have had quite a life already and done a lot of things. What are you currently into? What are you doing right now?
Currently, I'm editing a science fiction anthology series, and I'm on book number 26 already.
Oh, wow.
So, and I solicit stories from other authors who like to write science fiction, fantasy, and horror, and then I read all this slush. Typically, it's like 400 stories per call. Wow. And then I get help from a lot of friends, and I have slush readers also who help me out. So eventually we get down to about 20 stories.
And you publish these online?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Both online and in paperbacks.
Awesome. And how did you get into that?
Well, I've had some background as a technical writer and a science writer and a science editor and those sorts of things. So it was pretty easy for me to get going in the self-publishing business. So I formed my own little company, went to one of those, one of those seminars on how to start your own small business. And it seemed all pretty straightforward. So it's been a learning experience, though, because the marketing aspect has been the hardest part.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Corey and I both are business owners as well. And I think just for other people out there, I think that's one of the things that I was so surprised about is that it's really not that hard to start something. I think it's the kind of the keeping it going and getting the stuff out there.
Right.
But if you have a passion and you want to do it, it's not that hard to start. You just got to put,
It's the marketing.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. I just happen to have a marketing background myself, but I've never reached out. If I didn't have that, I don't know how I would have ever sold my services, And actually, Travis, he is a musician. We were having a discussion last night. When it comes to writing, when it comes to music, how do we get it out there? So, what are the things that you're trying out?
Yeah, I really like music too.
I was just reading that. Yeah.
I play mandolin, so
I love
my music teacher was what I would call a superstar on Facebook. She had like 1,000 followers, and every time she'd do a concert, it's like packed. So wow. I envy that. I haven't had that success myself. Yeah. But what I've done is mostly social media like Twitter and Facebook. So I have kind of a dedicated Twitter account that's my anthology series, and then my own personal one. So it depends on how I feel that day about whether I think shall I plug the book or shall I say those squirrels are eating my out in the garden.
And sometimes people love those posts.
Yeah, exactly.
The latter, of course.
And that's one thing I learned along the way is to kind of mix it up so that you're not strictly trying to flog all your products.
Sure. And this is all stuff that you are doing since you've retired. Well,
yes.
In air quotes, they're retired, right? Because you worked at InCar,
right,
which is the National
Center for Atmospheric Research.
Yep. For 30 years? Is that
30
right?
years. Yeah.
Wow. The majestic building up in the Boulder Hills there.
Yeah.
Right
it's beautiful there.
So I was really lucky to have a job that long and that steady. And they even paid for my education, furthering my education. So I got a master's degree at their expense. So,
And how did you end up working at NCAR?
I started out at the Geological Society of America as a copy editor. And so that I learned all the copy marks and learned a lot about geological science. So then one of my coworkers went up to NCAR, and that was kind of my connection to getting a job.
And you're a Colorado native.
I am.
So you'd heard of NCAR before.
Yeah.
And NCAR, do we know when was NCAR built?
The building was built in the mid-'60s, like 66, I believe.
Yeah.
And I.M. Pei, the
Yes, I
famous
am Pei, my favorite architect.
famous architect, designed it and everything. And it was kind of interesting that he originally wanted to have 2 more towers than what you see there, but I think they ran out of money.
And so you watched that all come from the ground up.
Well, I wasn't there until about 10 years later.
Okay. But you were you weren't here in Boulder. Were you on the outskirts?
I was a student when it was being built.
Oh,
So.
neat. So you were at the forefront. Were there many other women working there at that time?
Well, they were definitely the minority, and there were a lot fewer women's restrooms, shall we say. Just
Yeah.
heard of that. So, in fact, they tended to be unisex bathrooms and things like that.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
because for a while there weren't that many women.
Yeah. So you were at the frontier of that all, really.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really something admirable to meet someone who worked there and from the very early times,
Yeah, mostly I was writing, press releases and editing scientific articles that, the different scientists would write, and then interviewing them for annual reports and all sorts of things. And we had a very large film unit, and we had a photography unit, and all sorts of different things that we could call upon to help us out. And over the years, they kind of have farmed those out to private agencies.
And then they paid for you to get a degree in computer science, NCAR did? And
Yep.
did they come to you, or did you go to them and say, hey, this is something I'm interested in?
First, I just took a few courses because my husband was a computer scientist, and I thought, I like this. And they had tried to teach some of us writers how to program in Fortran. And I would
Fortran.
go, what? I don't get any of this. What are you talking about? And so, but then I went to CU and took a couple more courses, and they had different languages like Pascal and C and things. And I said, I'm starting to get a clue. And that's when I went and said, hey, would you pay for my degree? And they said, okay.
Awesome.
If you
That's
get
awesome.
good grades, we'll keep paying.
How fortunate is that
Yeah,
they did that? And so
good
you
benefit.
just did that at CU?
Yes.
Awesome.
And Nova Southeastern, University also.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, and again, at the frontier of those, Fortran, and like, what is it, C++, all that. I mean, that's at the beginning, and a lot of it's all evolved. So how neat that you got to do that, huh?
Yeah. They still use Fortran for certain, modeling applications because it was designed for, translating, I guess you call it formula translation is what it stands for.
Yeah.
And so it would go directly to whatever formulas they were using for the weather at the time. And it was actually quite efficient.
And so you're writing these press releases about science.
Yeah.
All of these, I can't imagine the things that you got to write about, the interesting things and the things that you learned that you would have never, you're getting this material from other scientists, I guess is.
Yeah. And so that's another thing I'm really proud of is I heard all this stuff straight from the horse's mouth.
Right. At the forefront of climate change, right?
First was getting big, probably late 80s. They were saying, things are not looking good. We're detecting a signal of global warming. And then, of course, that became political over time. But and now they call it climate change or they look for other euphemisms, but it is basically a warming.
Right. And you got to see that happening in real time from real researchers who are ringing these bells saying, hey, pay attention.
Like Joe Trivia was the one that I wrote a big article about in the late 80s.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
It's so neat.
It is. It is. It is so neat. And were the men there supportive of having, the growing women in the field?
I would say the scientists were quite supportive, but they also would ask, like if you were interviewing them, for example, they'd say, what's your background? Like, how much do I have to dumb this down for you?
You're like, I got it. Just go.
Yeah. And so over time, you'd built up a relationship.
And kind of got respect earned that way.
And
Awesome.
that's government protected, right?
Yes, it's a contractor with the National Science Foundation. So every 5 years or so, they undergo a large evaluation by the foundation.
Yes.
And it's a consortium of, last I heard, 55 or so universities. So that was kind of a balancing act too, because universities also wanted money from the NSF. So, they wanted both the benefit of having a big national facility that they could call upon with airplanes and weather radars and that sort of thing, but also, their own grants to get funded. So, we did a very careful balancing act, I think.
I had no idea.
And during this time, when you're doing these scientific writings, did you have this back burner passion of looking at sci-fi stuff? Where did you get that passion?
Yeah, I've
from?
always loved science fiction. So that was kind of when I did retire. I said I had plenty of ideas of stories to write on my own, and I cranked out quite a few of those. And then I thought, and this self-publishing thing is really catching on, so maybe I can get going on that. So,
and where do you get inspired by your stories of science fiction that you write, or do they come to you in a dream? Where does it come from?
The ones I write myself. I tend to still read a lot of science publications for popular science, like Discover and Science News and Scientific American. So I'll go, oh, look at that. That looks interesting, and an idea pops in my head about extrapolating probably into the near future.
Right. So do you kind of base it off some reality and then tweak it into a sci-fi?
Yeah. Unless I'm deciding to do some fantasy, and then it's like, who knows where those come from.
Well, that's amazing, because then you can just the endless possibilities of wherever your imagination can take you. Yeah. And how do people find you?
How do they find
like if I wrote something, how would I go about finding you to see if you'd be interested in my piece?
Oh, well, I advertise in a couple of marketplaces, one of which is called Duotrope, and that's probably the largest one. There's another one called the Submission Grinder. So anytime I decide that a new anthology is coming, I write up a blurb of the kind of stories I'd like to get. Typically, I like to have a theme, and I put out the call, and here they come.
And well, it's a huge community, right?
Yeah.
And have you made a lot of new friends and met a lot of new people?
The writers are great, and they're not the greatest marketers themselves, so but they're really friendly and supportive, and they really try their best to give us a push, at least with their own social networks and families and things. So.
Is it a supportive community of sci-fi writers, or is it competitive?
That's a good question as far as competition. When I first started, I thought, I don't care if I get famous writers. I just want to identify some talent, that may not be getting a chance at the big magazines like Analog or Asimov's. And that worked well, but it took probably 3 years before people were doing the flooding thing, if you know what I mean. So I would have kind of a small selection to choose from. But I also would write to, so at that point I started probably contacting some more famous writers and saying, would you be interested in publishing with us? And I mostly got turned down.
Try and try again, right?
Yes, exactly. Because they were too busy or too famous or this, that, or the other. But gradually, a few of them, like from the Science Fiction Writers Association, discovered us, and then they would plug us. And
Well, yeah, it only takes like one or two, and then you slowly starts trickling in.
Yeah, so if you have one or two per issue coming in, then word gets around.
Yeah.
And even if you're getting turned down, even like for our listeners, at least you're getting that attention.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, we'll send something out with Travis's music and we won't hear back from anybody, but if we could just get, that, but the perseverance, right? Just try again.
Yep.
And you got something good here, this is wonderful. And you're attracting other people that probably were looking for this same kind of outlet. And I love how you describe it as giving back, what a wonderful thing. And the imagination is just a powerful thing. And I'm curious, have you always had an active imagination as like a little girl?
Well, I like to think so.
Yeah.
But I also have a strong work ethic. So, that I really first majored in journalism when I went to school. So that you're working on a tight deadline, you're trying to get things accurately presented and things like that. So those came in handy for me also.
Yeah, absolutely. Put those things together. Ooh, you got something good. It's a good recipe, right?
Yeah,
for success. For success. And your parents, when you were in school for journaling, let's see, what were your parents up to?
Well, my mother was a single mom after I was about 12 years old, so they divorced. So it was kind of a tough slog through high school and stuff. So academic work was, of course, something that saved my bacon half the time. I could sit down there in the corner and read my Kurt Vonnegut stories.
Yeah. And your mom worked at the Pentagon, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. What did she do there? Or is it top secret?
No, I think it was strictly, secretarial pool and
That's something else. And your dad was in World War II.
Yeah.
And he was in the Marines, huh? Wow. That's something else.
And also, you were a CU Trivia Bowl finalist. So you love trivia?
Yeah. Yes. And we just they had a 50th anniversary celebration last
I didn't
spring.
know that was a thing. That's so
So
awesome.
fun. And that's why, you were studying journalism, right?
Yeah. So,
That is a hoot.
Do you attribute that to your love of reading, that you just learned so much from that?
I mean, before the internet, a lot of us writers would pride ourselves on all the research we had done, and we knew how to find any fact in Norland Library or whatever it took, So now it's quite a bit easier to just sit at your keyboard and hit Wikipedia.
Just Google anything.
And it may or may not be accurate, but
I know. Imagine all the straight A's we would have gotten if we had I didn't have the internet when I was still in high school, and in college it was just starting up. But imagine, right? I would have been straight A+ student. So what was it like to have the 50th reunion get together?
it was great because
So
our team, who were from 1969 and 70, were called Anonymous Bush. But our real star couldn't make it, so he lives in California, but he's still around.
Oh, fun!
And so we got put on a kind of pickup team.
Yeah.
And they found us another star, so he was going and answering 2/3 of the questions, and I got in maybe 1/3 or something.
That's not bad.
And I was proud.
Oh, that's great. It sounds like you have a lot of fun.
They're great.
And you also hang out at some local brew pubs, right? And you jam
more
in at
beer.
the brew pubs. You play the fiddle as well as the mandolin.
Yeah, not very well, I'm afraid. But
Hey, but
I
if you
work
can pick
at
it up, right? And it sounds like you got a great group of friends, different groups of friends even, just all over.
yeah, I have a lot of writing friends. Like to do my own science fiction writing, I'm in a critique group, and we get together every 2 weeks and stab each other in the back. Like, oh my God. You go home, cry. No. No, but all their input's really valuable because,
Absolutely.
how else would you find readers who would tell you, yes, we like it, or no, we don't, unless you put it out there in a paperback or something and then never hear anything.
Right. Right. So you guys get together, you kind of write your pieces or whatever and get together and say, read this. And then they can come back and you say, you need to change this or maybe look at this. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, we decided we'd put out an anthology of our own from the critique
Awesome.
group.
Wow.
So it's just come out, and it's called Flight, which is not the easiest to find title on Amazon, but it is there. And the critique group is called 30th Street.
30th Street. All right.
That's highly
Bless them.
beneficial to have a critique group, just in general. I
Yeah.
think there should be more, just
yeah.
for life critique, But that's
Yeah.
wonderful. You found a group of people that will come together and show up for one another.
Yeah, and they have quite a lot of different backgrounds. Like, there's only two out of 10 of us that really write straight science fiction. A couple write fantasy, and a couple others write what I would call thrillers. And and so you have to learn, like, this is not exactly my genre, but I'll tell you what I know, whether it appeals to me.
And you have your own podcast as well. Can you tell us about that?
Our podcast is with Third Flatiron, and that's our anthology series. And we just basically, when we do the contract for the story, we ask the writer, would you mind if we do a podcast of your story? And they almost always say yes. And I used to pay them extra until we reached a state where we were professionally paying market. And so now I just say, will you let us have that permission? And they still usually say yes.
Yeah.
And, so that's been a nice milestone to achieve too. And the stories are straight reads. My son-in-law, who lives in Scotland, does the production work of the podcast, and he adds a few sound effects here and there,
Yeah.
like,
And so is it the author?
That's what Travis does.
Is it the author reading? Or is it the author who reads their own story? Or do you have
We
some-
started out mostly that I was recruiting people, like, hey, you have a good voice. Would you come over to my basement and sit in front of me? And so it was a lot of friends and family at first, but then different authors decided, hey, can I read my own story? And I found a couple who are really fantastic readers.
Yeah.
Like one's named Wolf Moon, and he has a great voice, and he has read. He said, "You gave me our first break," and now he reads stories for other
That's
outfits.
awesome.
I was just looking up thirdflyiron.com, and there he is up at the top, Wolf
Yep.
Moon.
Yep, we just put out a
This is
podcast
great.
by him, read by him.
Wow. Well, that's real fun. Oh, and that's wonderful that your son-in-law is your editor.
Right.
How nice. That was
Yes.
one thing Lisa and I, we were like, who's going to edit this? Well, our our music engineer can do it, that's fun. And then you work with him remotely in Scotland. Do you ever
Yeah.
go to visit?
Yes, actually, Keely is expecting, so we're expecting to go there in January.
Is it going to be your first grandbaby?
Congratulations.
First grandbaby.
Oh my gosh, how
Oh,
exciting.
Julie,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Oh, that's great. So cool.
And Andrew was a musician too. He had his own band and everything too. So that's how I think he got into the
Yeah.
recording world. And
It seems to go hand in hand.
yeah,
It works out really well.
if you're making demos.
I'm also fascinated about your historical fantasy, the short story, The Adventures of Mountain Man.
I was just going to say that too. I was looking at that too.
Yeah, I brought
And
a
you
copy
brought, I
here.
see
Oh,
it.
wonderful.
Yeah, and so the main character is a girl who was found as a foundling after the Civil War in Leadville, Colorado. And she was adopted by a couple of miners. And so, it was an opportunity to do some Colorado history research. And then she meets up with a wolf, and so it becomes a fantasy at that point. A paranormal fantasy. So she and her wolf friend team up to fight for the environment and
That's so awesome.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Travis, we'll have to read this. Travis and I started reading books together recently. This sounds so fun. And how neat that you did all kinds of research ahead of time. I'm sure you found all kinds of interesting things. And we'll learn more about it in the book, too.
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah, I see here
And I love
that
the
recently
art.
the Sierra Club announced some progress in reintroducing the gray wolf back to the state. I think. What are your thoughts on that? Are you excited for that?
I'm excited for
I'm
it,
excited for that too.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love
And I don't know if you've been to the nature preserve that's here in Colorado, but they have recently purchased, I think, 700 acres or something in southern Colorado. And so that's where there's a better chance of wolves running around without getting shot,
Oh my gosh, I hope it happens. I
Yeah.
really, really, really do.
Yeah.
I think it'll be amazing.
Yeah. And the kind of wolf that we're talking about is not the European style ones that used to,
No.
run people down and eat the horses. And these are much smaller wolves, and
Oh, Julie,
they
I
would be
can't read-
quite beneficial in, controlling the
Yeah.
elk herds and things like that.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't wait
That's
to read
amazing.
this. This is so fun. I'm going to tell my father too. Oh, this is just so neat.
Yeah,
But
and-
yeah, the wolves. And I love, there's on her book there is a wolf for our readers. We'll put a picture up too to show you. Oh, it's just so great. Oh, how exciting. I'm not a writer. I can write. I'm a business writer. I can write like policies,
Yeah.
but I can't, my imagination, I don't know how to get it down on paper. So I'm just tickled when I meet someone who can write, Do you ever write poems or lyrics or anything like that?
I tried a little bit of poetry, but I don't feel comfortable in it.
Yeah.
And it was rejected everywhere I sent it, and et cetera.
Yeah.
But some of the people that I am friends with are poets, like at CU professor and stuff like that. So I was trying to solicit a little bit of science fiction poetry for our anthologies too, because some of the magazines have poems. So far, not successfully.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Do you have a favorite author yourself besides yourself?
Probably at the moment it's Charles Stross, and he writes kind of, I guess you'd call it space opera type.
Oh, yes. I'm familiar with this. I don't
like-
mean to bring up Travis again, but Travis is a fanatic of space operas. Wouldn't you call them that? There's and he'll tell me about them. I wish I haven't read them. Just
Yeah.
yeah. What was there's a couple other ones that you just recently you're real cool ones. Oh, whatever. Anyway, but Charles Stross here. Cool.
Yeah.
And what is
Charles
one of your
Stross.
favorite books by him, or that you would recommend that our listeners read?
Ooh, good question. Well, he has a series that's set with with a water planet like Neptune's daughter and stuff like this, and so he has very cute ways of getting around the fact that we don't think faster than light travel is going to be possible ever. Just due to the laws of physics, and so for a while there, space opera was kind of dying out because that's impossible. It's just fantasy type of thing.
Yeah.
But he has actually some clever scientific ways of, getting around the time lags and the amount of difficulty you'd have in talking to other planets and things like that. So,
Awesome. And you have
always
another
enjoy
book
it.
here that you've written too.
this is my first novel.
This is your very first novel that you
Yeah,
wrote?
It is, and it came out this summer. It's called The Unwinding, Jin's Story. And so Jin is short for Virginia, and she's a Korean-American housewife, and she just kind of gets swept away into a big space opera adventure.
And do you become connected to your characters when you write them? Like, do you think about them? And, I find when I'm reading a book, sometimes some books just captivate me with certain characters. And I will think when I close my book and I walk away, I find myself thinking, I wonder what so-and-so's doing. Like they're real. You know what I mean? I don't know. And do you do that when you're writing?
Yes, and I've had trouble with some characters, like where are we going with that should I drop that person? Because you do always debate whether you have too many characters or not enough. Or one of the little tools I use is to kind of write a little biography of a character, and so that I know what they look like and what they eat and where they went to school, if it's in the present or kind of thing. So that way, whenever I do some dialogue or something, would that person really say it that way or would they not, or kind of thing. So
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I will often wonder that too about I would feel like I'm a very forgetful person. And I would feel like as I got later in the book of writing, I would have to think back to, do you ever have to go back and reread what you wrote? Do you ever get lost in your own story?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. It's some people, they say there are different styles of writing, like the ones that do an outline and like they've got scene by scene. And there are quite a few books, like our critique group has a little library of writing technique books and that sort of thing. I'm more of I have an idea of the precipitating event, and that's what gets me started. And I'll be rolling, and then I might hit the middle and go, uh-oh, I don't know where this is going to end up. And that's where I might have to do some outlining and adding of, high points and conflicts that the characters might have, that sort of thing. So
that's awesome. And I have to ask you this, a little off topic, but Corey and I are both huge animal fans, especially dog fans.
Especially corgi fans.
You used to show dogs.
Yay!
You've done so much. It's so fascinating.
Well, this was quite a while ago. I haven't been showing our current corgi. He's just our pet.
What's his name?
A sweetie. Dougal.
Dougal.
Yeah.
That's a great name.
His nickname is Dougal McDougal Face.
Dougal McDougal Face.
Yes.
Oh, we would be best friends. And how old is Dougal?
He's turning 2.
2.
Yeah. And so, did you notice that they have a new thing about how dogs age?
No.
They did a DNA analysis of all these dogs, and they apparently age much faster than we traditionally believed, which was like 7 years for every human year type of thing. And so I have to tell Dougal that, you're 30 years old now.
Oh, that's actually sad.
And then they age much more slowly after
a certain time.
Stop acting like a doofus. Eating all the shoes.
Oh.
Now, corgis are great because they were bred as herding animals, like cow herders.
Yeah. I have a herding dog myself. I have an Australian Shepherd.
Oh, yeah. They're much faster runners.
They have little longer legs than the corgi. They're a little low.
Yeah, corgis are famous for being able to dodge the kick of the cow and stuff like that. And they have big teeth for their size.
Yeah.
They have a lot in common with, say, Siberian Huskies and stuff. They're in that same.
Well, they're kind of like a royalty dog too, right? A lot of royalty like the corgis.
I just started watching a series called The Crown on Netflix, so I could see the corgis.
That was my reason for watching too.
Every now and then, 3 of them run by.
Like, there they are.
I bet in that snowstorm was Dougal nowhere to be seen in the snow.
Yes, I put a picture on Twitter about that. Like he was going, it's over my head.
We were caring for some corgis up the road here, and they looked like porpoises coming out of the water. Out of the snow. It was so funny. They're so cute.
Yeah, in the backyard, we like to shovel him a little ring.
Oh yes, that's perfect.
And he goes running around.
Mm-hmm. And when you used to show dogs, what was that like?
That was a fun experience because you learned how to groom.
I was going to say you did all the grooming.
Yeah.
And I bet you met some interesting characters. I just think of the show. Do you guys ever remember that comedy, Show Dogs?
Yes, I love that.
It's pretty funny. You got to watch it.
Yeah. So I don't know what to say exactly about the whole thing of showing, but there are more than one avenue you can follow. There's also obedience, and I've done that before, and it's very challenging because your dog, for example, if you're doing something like a long stay, sit stay, and it can go on 5 minutes, and your dog doesn't want to do that for 5 minutes. And
It's a long time.
my dog would start crawling on his stomach toward me.
Do the army crawl.
No, don't come.
And I suspect, have you always had dogs and animals in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're wonderful companions. Has Dougal made an appearance in any of your books or writings?
Sort of. I did a few fantasy stories about witches who had familiars, and the main character had a corgi, a dire corgi.
Ooh, a dire corgi.
Like out of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yes, Julie. Oh, you're a one-hip lady. This is neat.
Yeah, I know. And you also, not to, keep going on the many things that you do, but you also have blogs too.
Yeah. I don't do it too often, but every once in a while I'll get a bee in my bonnet, like, where is Boulder going anyway, and things like that. So.
Yeah. Well, and I know, like you were
We
saying,
need those.
You have a blog
Fracking, no.
about women's pay and equality and how it's, progressing slowly.
Yeah,
And I know
'cause-
you have already spoken to us. You've got to experience a lot of this happening in real time, and what does that look like to you from someone who started out, a while back and have seen this kind of growth happen?
Yeah, in some ways it's depressing at the present time because you see one step backward. But I was glad to see the Me Too movement happening, and so I blogged about how great Samantha Bee is and stuff like that. So
We'll have to include your blog on our website for this episode for you.
yeah, when I first started the blog, which was way back, I would write little things about, if you're in the office and you're having a meeting, let the lady speak. It's her turn to talk.
Beautiful. Yes.
For a change,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've been watching, and we just got caught up last night. I don't know if either of you ladies have seen it, but it's new on the Apple Watch channel, and it's The Morning Show. And last night, I
Like
just
morning as in good morning or morning?
yeah, like Good Morning. It's
Morning
like it's Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, and it's based on them doing like a morning talk show. And then there was a whole thing. I don't want to ruin the whole show, but there's a whole aspect storyline of the old co-host gets in trouble, for sexual harassment type stuff, and then he has to be replaced. And this last night's episode, it was just. It was a powerful one that I was like, oh, and it was just this situation between this man and this woman, and a man of power and this woman who is much lower on the, the totem pole of the job, and how that situation happens and how the advantage gets taken in this way. And you watch it and you just see how confusing it can be for women, and of not wanting this, but not knowing what to do, and like how this stuff happens. And it was just infuriating. It's a really good show. I highly recommend watching. It's The Morning Show.
Yeah, it's sort of like being the president of Ukraine, Well,
Yeah. I mean, it's just so much is going on. So many good things are coming out, but also so many eye-opening things, I think, are coming out that you're like, holy shit, this is still happening. Why is this happening?
yeah, like even on NPR, two of, the people you listen to every day that you thought were, your heroes were fired.
Right. And it's
Or stepped in.
heartbreaking because, it's these people in these public eyes. And in that show, they do a really good job of how this person is this beloved person. And then the heartbreak of finding out that they're not who you think they are. It's just like, oh, wow. It's just crazy times, crazy times.
You are a member of the Boulder Media Women's Group. Is that correct?
That's right.
What is that about?
It's been around since the early 90s, and it's a mixture of all sorts of types of writers. We're thinking of kind of working more closely with the Boulder Writers Alliance, which is not just women, but it's a great bunch of people because we have just basically a email list, and people will say, I need a lawyer, and you go, you're not supposed to advertise for a lawyer. You're supposed to talk about writing. And everyone else says, oh, shut up. I know a couple of good lawyers. And they have regular parties and potlucks, like meetups, and there's a cocktail hour and a coffee hour, which I like to go to on Friday mornings.
So weekly, and it's
At
great.
the Laughing Goat, yeah.
Oh, yes, the Laughing Goat. So it's a great networking opportunity then, too.
Absolutely. And, we'll meet new people who've come into town and they find out about us, and they'll be looking for opportunities. And if we can, we help them out.
And is the Boulder County indie authors similar?
Yes, that's a much smaller group of about 20 people most of us have all written a book. So we're trying to leverage our efforts to do things like book fairs and that sort of thing. So, because if you've ever been to a book fair and sat there the whole time and paid $100 and sold nothing, it's very discouraging.
Yeah.
So I think it's great to have people who will help you out. And so it's enabled us to work with Boulder Bookstore, for example, to do presentations for book clubs. Like there's a book club night twice a year at the Boulder Bookstore. And so if you're a member of a book club, we put up, we have someone come up and say, here's a 5-minute summary of this book. Wouldn't you guys like to read it? And that's resulted in some nice opportunities.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, to do a reading and stuff. So this is the first year that I've done any readings of my own stuff aloud.
Fun. That's just so cool. I'm like, it's a whole other world. I didn't even know that world existed, but now I want to get it. I'm like, I'm going to show up to one of those the book fairs, and at Boulder Books, it's fun to go in there, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's cool. What an interesting way to networking, another way to market and get your book out there, your name out there.
Yeah, because at first I just thought, the only people they have doing readings are famous authors, and you'd pay $5 to there, and they would if you bought their book, they'd autograph it. But they do it for local people too.
That's great. I suspect that your artist for your cover is the same person.
Yes.
Who is that?
That's my daughter, Keely.
Oh, keep it in the family. That's what I like to do too. It's beautiful. That's just fantastic. And is that just something she does for hobby, or is that?
I think she treats it as a hobby. Basically, her education is in urban planning, so that's how she ended up in Scotland. I guess that was kind of her degree.
Yeah. The books are beautiful.
Glasgow, yeah.
They really are. She did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
I especially like the unwinding of Jin's story and the lightning.
The
that's
green
coming out.
lightning, yes.
Is your husband creative also?
Yeah, he is. He was trying to write some books about Unix and but more technical books. But for I can't think of the name of the series that everybody goes when they want to learn a new tool, and so he's put in a few proposals of that sort. But he's retired too. He's more of a consultant at this point for a software package he developed that's used all over atmospheric science. It's called NetCDF, Common Data Form. So everybody who writes models typically uses this product to format their data.
You guys just aren't slowing down.
No.
That's awesome.
Never.
That's awesome. I love it. I do.
Why not? Why not?
And so for people out there who are, have things they're writing, it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, it's like putting yourself out, like joining all these different groups and like finding people who share common interests so that you can bounce ideas off each other and share things with each other and promote each other. Is that what you recommend doing? Is just joining as much as possible? Or do you find a mentor? How does that, what's your advice?
Good question. For me, it's just that I tend to meet people along the way, and they say, "Come over here to this group," and so if you're at all social, it's fun to meet up with people.
Yeah.
But if you're just a solitary writer, that is good too, I think.
That's fun. That's so fun. I can't believe, I don't know. It's just so interesting to meet people and to find out just how many facets to you that there are. You know what I mean? You have done so much, and you're still doing so much. And I see you also still have time to volunteer and help the community.
Well, that's partly from the Boulder Media Women, because we have, some of our we decided we would do some volunteer work. So we like to work for community food share and soup kitchens like Hope and stuff like that. And, that it's just a great opportunity to give back again.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And somebody else does all the organizing for you. They just say, anyone want to do this? And you go, I'll be there.
Yeah, you should. I know. We and my kids and I we do a soup kitchen. And I mean, it's a once a month thing, but it's the same thing. We just sign up on the email and they have it already. These organizations that do this, they have it down and they know what they're doing. And
Right.
you show up and you put your apron on and say, tell me where to go and what to do, and you do it. And I think, just to plug people for volunteering, I have gotten so much out of it. I know my kids have. And I've learned so much just about, I'm not a very social person. I'm also a very fearful person just in social, surroundings. I don't know. Yeah. But that has really helped me, going in, and I realize that everybody is so gracious and so thankful and so kind, and people come into the soup kitchen and they stay and they help us clean up. And I, because I've had some people ask, oh, don't you, is it unsafe for the kids? I'm like, no, it's not unsafe. I've never once felt unsafe. It's wonderful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And some of them have kids.
Right.
And bring them in.
Right.
for a meal.
And so, and it's so just rewarding to have the, people come up to you and say, thank you for just being here. And you're like, I didn't do anything but, scrub some dishes and put some stuff together. It's a whole community coming together to help make these things possible. And I don't know. I just really have want to plug any volunteer work that anybody can do. And the people out there in those organizations are amazing to put all that stuff together, and how it all just always works out so flawlessly. I love it. It's amazing.
And Julie, is there anything you'd like to plug, like your website or anything like that, before we wrap things up so our listeners can tune in?
Well, my author website is just juliannaroo.com. And Third Flatiron's website is thirdflatiron.com.
Fantastic.
So I tried to keep those simple. And I think both of those websites would give you further information about what we do and where we're going.
Wonderful. And we'll make sure we put our put links on our website as well.
Yeah.
And share what you're doing, your beautiful work that you're putting out in the world with our listeners too, because this is just fantastic. And I'm going to go ahead and pick up a copy of The Adventures of Mountain Man, ma'am, if anyone wants to join me.
Have a little book club.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Julie, for coming on the show. It was an absolute delight. And we hope to have you on again another time.
Thank you.
Yes. And I'm looking forward to listening to more of your podcasts too. I was looking at them this morning and going, wow. That looks interesting.
Thank
so
you.
Glad.
Thanks, girls.
Thanks, Julie.
If you have an interesting story, something funny, something sad, something you want the world to know, please email us. We want you to share your experiences with us. We'll take these, we'll collect them, we'll do some episodes sometimes where we'll read them. So if you want to be anonymous, please just let us know. We won't read your name. If you want your name read, then we will. But send us those stories, comments to info@herturntotalkpodcast.com. And we also ask, if you like what you're hearing, please rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you.